Cecil Hurt of the Tuscaloosa News and Tidesports.com. Crazy, Cecil. Tina, 80 today.
It's been a tough 80 for Tina in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so, no doubt.
I didn't know where we were going today. I didn't know if it was Phil Spector Day.
that's the Phil Spector version right there, yeah.
Yeah, that's the wall of sound right there on River Deep Mountain High.
Cecil, let's get into some Iron Bowl talk. And I was thinking about it during the break. Last time Alabama went into a matchup with Auburn, with the quarterback situation being what it is now, in terms of a true backup, starting the game.
Spencer Pennington.
Spencer Pennington in 04, right? Yeah.
That's the last time. They just hadn't had a, as unfortunate as Tua's situation is, and as unfortunate as it has been perhaps for this season, we'll see. They've had a run of really good health at quarterback until this year. Mm-hmm. So, it was Spencer in 04. They were beat up in the 04. Probably in some ways similar to this. So
now in 01 on the Plains, that was Zal and Tyler Watts, right?
Yeah, they were split in time.
I
can't even remember who had started when, although Andrew had a big game that day. So they were back and forth. They were never really injured and out. It's been Spencer Pennington's been one, and really I'm trying to think of the other time. I'm trying to think in 88, I guess David Smith was still able to go. He wasn't very mobile with his knee situation.
93, a backup was forced into action, we know, down on the Plains.
Sure, yeah.
Jay went out.
So, and then I guess 2 years ago, they the game just sort of got away from him with Jalen. Didn't have his best game. So we'll see how Matt can do. But, it's been a series where, you have some memorable quarterback performances, probably for one drive. Well, Stabler's run in the mud, if you call that a drive. But Mike Shula may have quarterbacked the best drive of anybody at the end of the 85 game. So we'll see what Matt can do.
What's the reasonable expectation for Mac Jones going into this game? I'm not even really just talking about pinpointing yards or touchdowns or completion percentages. In terms of what he's asked to do, Cecil, what's reasonable and what's reality, do you think?
Protect the ball. Don't turn it over. Obviously is important in any game. That's not some groundbreaking football revelation that I've just come up with. Always important to protect the ball. And then be good enough as he was, as he kind of showed against Western Carolina. They were doing some showpiece play calling where Auburn has to respect that deep pass, so they can't just absolutely put 10 guys up on, within 6 yards of the line of scrimmage. Don't be afraid to use Devontae and Judy and Ruggs if he's back, and Waddle. I mean, those are your strengths, and you've got to play to those strengths. And it's not just dumping 3 and 4 yarders off and hoping they make something happen, although you do some of that too. But you got to go over the top a couple of times. Maybe pick your spot, but you've got to have some of that.
Yeah, I don't think Kevin Steele and that Auburn staff is going to be as reluctant to put more guys in the box and sort of try to crowd things up there and see if Mac Jones and see if that protection can hold up and if Mac can hit those intermediate to deeper routes. I agree. I think that's something early in the game you're probably going to have to try to do.
Yeah, you make him beat you and Pete Golding's going to do the same with Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Try and make him beat you. Where Auburn's tough, and I don't think that the offenses are exactly the same. Maybe if Tua had been playing, the big if. But against LSU, Auburn's been a pretty good time. They're so confident in those guys up front that they were playing 3 down and 8, basically in coverage.
Yeah.
Almost 8 defensive backs. Some of them were the hybrid linebacker type guys. And and those 3 were so good that LSU still didn't run it up the middle. Didn't just dominate at the line of scrimmage just because Brown and Davidson are so tough up there. And where LSU finally found some yardage was flanking Auburn, getting St. Hilaire out on the edge and doing some of those things. And so, Najee can get to the edge a couple of ways. Najee Harris can get to the edge in the running game or the passing game. Now, but whether Auburn will have the same defensive plan of attack, whether they'll worry as much about Mac throwing the ball as they did Joe Burrow remains to be seen. I mean, you've got to account for Alabama's receivers. That's one thing. I think it's such a chess match. I'm interested to see what Alabama does with their tight ends, which could be a weapon in the passing game. I suppose if you use Billingsley, I don't know if they feel like Billingsley can hold up against Auburn's pass rush. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him. They may just go what I always now call Brandon Green. It's Chris Owens now and Randolph. So interested to see there. So it's a great chess match. And again, it's not just one-sided. Auburn's got to find ways on offense themselves. And the health of Alabama's defensive line is a big, big, big story in this game. How much can they get out of Raekwon, E.J. Dale, those guys?
No doubt about it. People just love betting on Alabama, don't they? I mean, this line opened at 3 with Alabama a 3-point road favorite with its backup starting the game Saturday. And it's gone up a half point. I guess our friends in the desert, Cecil, they just can't come up with a line that people won't put money on Alabama with, it seems like.
No, and Auburn's had enough struggles offensively that people who are playing that one looking for a low-scoring game probably wouldn't be my first choice of games I'd try and play actual money on if I ever played actual money, which I do not. Just a tough game, and I think people who go down there every other year are aware of what the atmosphere is like and just wouldn't want to put a coin or two on a backup quarterback in any situation down there. So, but you are correct. Alabama's won a lot of money for a lot of bettors over the past 10 years. So it's hard to keep people from repeating that pattern.
Elsewhere around the SEC, you talk about some road dogs. There are some heavy road dogs in the league. Road favorites, actually, in terms of Georgia Tech. Yeah,
home dogs. If they have any teeth, there's a lot of meat piled up there. What's South Carolina get now? 24, 25?
It was 27 last time I looked.
27, yeah. There you go.
Georgia Tech's getting 28
at 21.
Yeah. It's
Are Or Vandy's getting 21 against Tennessee, obviously.
Yeah. What about Jeremy Pruitt and that whole deal? I don't know if there's a second half Coach of the Year award, but I would think Jeremy qualifies at this point.
Yeah, Ed Orgeron's going to be the Coach of the Year, and deservedly so. And Jeremy certainly held it together, and a little bit of function of getting to a good schedule stretch, but there were plenty of people, and I was one of them. If you told me in mid-September that they could go 2-10, I would have said, well, maybe they can. Maybe that's what's going to happen to them. And now they're playing. They're a pretty prohibitive favorite at Vanderbilt, trying to get to a Florida bowl game. Trying to get to some warm weather. So I would not have foreseen that. I'll be interested to see how they would do against the Big Ten team, and how that would carry over into next year. But yeah, Jeremy's done a great job. He's got to quit. One thing, Travis, he's got to quit grabbing his dudes.
He does.
He's got to quit grabbing his guys.
I mean, we know why he does it.
I get it. And I know it's tough love and all that.
That was accepted, but yeah.
Times have changed.
And the thing you wonder about is his boss comes from an era and is an old school guy in his own right as a football coach. Is Phil Fulmer going to have that conversation, you think, with Jeremy Pruitt? Somebody's got to.
Phil, if anything, Phil will tell him, leave it on the practice field. If you've got to jerk him up on the practice field, nobody's going to know. But the TV cameras notice that kind of stuff.
Who else notices it? Rival recruiters.
They do. And players are different. You might grab the wrong guy, and he's going to reach up and slap the asparagus out of Jeremy's mouth. So you got to be careful for that too. But he's done a great job, and I thought Jeremy was a good choice up there, and it'll be interesting to see how they recruit, how that shakes out.
Interesting, the sort of shifting directions. Pruitt and Joe Moorhead were in that same cycle together. They were involved in that Mississippi State job together. And Joe Moorhead might be in trouble, Cecil, if this thing goes sideways Thanksgiving night in Starkville with Ole Miss. What do you think?
I'm not out there in the vineyard and putting my ear to every grapevine that's out there, coaching-wise. But there are rumbling. Of course, Arkansas is made a change. At Mississippi State and at Missouri. Missouri's looked bad the second half of the season. They've got a couple of things that probably didn't bode well. They've got a transfer portal quarterback that, once you're out of championship contention, what's his buy-in level? And that's not something at all on Kelly Bryant by anything. Then they've got this appeal on their bowl game. They could still get bowl eligible at 6-6. They probably almost wish they'd just taken the ban and gotten it over with. So that they've had that hanging over. They just had. I thought they played okay against Tennessee. What little I saw of it, because it was up against two games that I was really watching more on Saturday night. But they just, I don't know a nicer way to put this. Their effort level just hadn't been great in the back half of the season. Now, what will happen Saturday with Arkansas? We'll see. They could certainly go out and win that game by 30 points, and maybe that'll make a difference. I don't know. The other thing I haven't heard yet is exactly what Arkansas's move is about to be.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones may have to stretch that checkbook if Arkansas is in the market. All of a sudden, the Cowboys are in the market.
Could be a 2-for-1 or 2-for-2 for Jerry.
He might really have to cut back on the Christmas presents this year.
If you're a guy like Mike Norvell, though, at Memphis, what's the motivation to take that job at Arkansas, or is there any?
Money, facilities, although they've done a nice job at Memphis of upgrading. I'm not 100% sure that you're ever going to be the the big dog in Memphis over the basketball program. It's a North Carolina Duke situation almost. So there's a little bit of that. Plus, Travis, to be successful coaches, and I get this, you got to have some ego. You got to have a little bit of ego.
Yeah.
And those guys look at SEC jobs, and they say, I'm winning here at Memphis, and I'm doing well, and I could get better players, and I'm a better coach than Chad Morris was or Brett Bielema, and I could turn that thing around. And they believe they can do it and make $4 or $5 million a year doing it if they can get it done. So those are the temptations. I think they're real. I think anybody that's taking the Arkansas game needs to look at some rosters and be realistic about what it's going to take. Catch out Alabama, LSU, Auburn, and A&M from a talent standpoint, but guys have egos, man. Guys think they can go to Starkville and win, and Dan Mullen did it to a somewhat limited but certainly commendable degree. So that's what a Mike Norvell is looking at. I don't know that it's any bigger stretch for Mike Norvell to take Arkansas than it was for Justin Fuente to take Virginia Tech.
Yeah. Well, I think that the success of Bobby Petrino is still fresh enough. We were talking about this last week. That last weekend 8 years ago, Arkansas ended up being a top 5 team in the final BCS rankings that season. I guess that's still fresh enough, right, for a lot of that fan base to think that 10 wins is reasonable, or not reasonable, but at least achievable on an occasional basis.
Yeah, and I think it is, and I think there's that, and I think their fan base, what they don't have for all the issues that Arkansas's had and the struggles that they've had. Everybody in Arkansas is Razorbacks, to any reasonable extent. I'm sure there's some Arkansas State fans and so forth, but it's almost like Louisiana, except it doesn't produce near the talent that Louisiana does. But if you can get the thing going, everybody's behind you. Everybody wants the Razorbacks to do well if they're in Arkansas. So there's that, and that gives you a belief because you don't have. You're not wrapped up in how you're doing against your rival. You just do what you do. And what they don't have in Arkansas is much of talent base. And they got to figure out how they're going to recruit. Are they going to recruit Dallas? Are they going to recruit, junior colleges? What are they going to do? Or you just system it up like Petrino did, where you get guys in that can play offense and go from there. So I don't know what they'll do, but Norvell would be. I think he's done a really good job at Memphis. This would be the time to hop to the SEC if you're anxious to do that. If State makes a change, you tell me what.
Oh, geez.
What that's going to be.
Yeah. I couldn't even really come up with a list right now for Mississippi State if it goes that way here in the next couple of weeks. Talking with Cecil Hurt, sports editor, columnist for the Tuscaloosa News and TideSports.com on Southern Fried Sports, presented by Peterbrook Chocolatier. Cecil,
I guess Gus is always a wild card in that Arkansas thing.
Yes, he is. Gus went Saturday though, Cecil. Auburn's not getting rid of a coach that's 3-4 against Nick Saban. That's not happening.
No, not at the price that they'd have to pay to get rid of him. Probably at any price, but they can. I'm sure their aspirations for this year were a little bit higher than where they'll end up, but a win over Alabama carries a lot of value down, a lot of value. So. We'll see what happens. If Alabama goes down there and wins by 3 or 4 touchdowns, different deal.
Yeah. Yeah, the check doesn't look so big at that point if it goes that way. I don't think for Gus Malzahn. Hey Cecil, yesterday afternoon we got a little bit of a surge there on the old social media after Nick Saban said that Auburn would probably be the best team Alabama has played all year. You and I know that's sort of a canned comment that Nick might wheel out multiple times a season. But it still stirred the masses a little bit yesterday.
Stirred them up in Louisiana, I guess.
Yeah.
And so LSU's awfully good. They beat Auburn by 4-6, whatever it was. So I would give LSU the bragging rights there, but Nick does those press conferences like people drive a Ferrari. There is no rearview mirror. You're not looking back. You're looking ahead.
Yeah.
You're looking ahead.
Well, and Cecil, with the team he's got right now, this is the best team that the team he's got right now will have faced, right?
Yeah, against that defense. Yeah, I see his point.
Yeah. With no Tua. It's literally been like 3 seasons, Cecil, within one for this team, hasn't it?
It has.
3 different seasons.
Yeah. You got to have injury luck, and they haven't had it. And, you lose your quarterback and your defense. And before the season, you lose your defensive signal caller. And your next guy who would be your defensive signal caller, Josh McMillan. Mm-hmm. They're both gone. So you got nothing but freshmen to work with, freshmen and sophomores who hadn't played very much, to work with at that position. So, that's really tough. But, as you say, there was a season there where they were just outgunning everybody. Tua was healthy. And then there was sprained ankle Tua season, which included the LSU game. And now there's no Tua.
So it's like 4, really. Yeah.
So, there's 3 right there.
Yeah. Well, Cecil, as we let you go here, wanted to get your thoughts on the hometown champ, Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder fashion late Saturday night, Cecil, with that 7th-round knockout. He's kind of got his way of going about his business regardless of the opponent, but it seems like the result stays the same for the most part.
Yeah, I thought he started slowly to be kind in that performance. But, there's some strategy to it in that you're wait, and you may not look very good for 3 or 4 rounds, but you're not wearing yourself out, and you may be behind on points, but you've got that big bomb, and you're just looking for a spot to land it. Sometimes a round will go by and you didn't get that spot, but I will give Deontay the slugger's credit, man. When he gets that fat pitch, he doesn't miss it. And it goes a long way.
Yeah, you hang a slider to Deontay, it's going about 450, right?
And you drop those gloves, and you wake up the next day and ask what happened. It's basically what you do. So it'll be interesting. It's him and Fury now, and Fury's crafty and tough, and Deontay got him down in the first fight. Same strategy, landed the bomb. Fury, to his credit, was able to take out the cobwebs and stand back up, so they got the draw. So I certainly think that it's one that people will watch. Tyson has certainly been visible on social media. I'll say that for him.
In terms of profitability, 2020 has the potential to be just a huge year for Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, and that's the way that they've structured it, that his management, that Jay Dees and the rest of his team have structured it to a lot of criticism sometimes, but he's got a chance to fight if he can beat Fury and then fight Joshua and unify them all, I can't even. That's
tens of millions.
That's pushing. That may be pushing 9 figures.
Wow.
In payday.
Wow.
That's more
Not
complicated.
bad.
All the networks and payouts and everything, but those would be 2. Huge ticket fights. If he could beat Fury, that's the set for life. He probably already made it to a point, but that's the set for life generational money.
Multiple generations possibly with that kind of cash.
Absolutely. So, and we got Alabama, North Carolina. I want to mention that.
Absolutely. We're going to talk a little hoops before we get out of here. Interesting matchup tomorrow afternoon down there. And it
will be. Cole Anthony
it starts right there on the point guard position.
Yeah, there'll be some scouts watching. I didn't realize Cole Anthony was Greg Anthony's son until I started doing the advanced work for this game.
Yeah, didn't help UNLV much, did it?
Times have changed. Just makes me feel old because, I was out in Oakland for the doubleheader, the Alabama Loyola Marymount game, obviously, but then I saw that UNLV team who played a close game with Ball State, and then I just stayed over the weekend. I was in the Bay Area anyway, and just saw UNLV annihilate Loyola. And
no one was.
That UNLV team was. They don't make teams like that anymore. Those guys don't stick around that long. But Loyola's trying to press, and they've got Anthony in the backcourt, and just and Anderson Hunt and
Stacey Augman,
to them, or
Larry
just throw
Johnson.
it over them to Augman, and Augman can handle it. And whatever's going on in midcourt, they're going to get it down one way or the other. They may get to the rim, or just throw it to Larry Johnson and lay it up. And they did that about 75 times against Loyola.
30 years ago, this coming March, Cecil, we lost Hank Gathers, and that memorable run that followed that with Paul Westhead and Bo Kimball.
Oh, yeah.
And those guys. Alabama was right there in the middle of that, as you alluded to.
Wimp, people will always say you can call in Wimp show debate whether he had the athletes to run with him or whether slowing it down was the way to go. He came within 2 points.
Yeah.
UNLV gave no thought to slowing it down in the championship game. That did not cross their mind.
That's like how some football offenses look at the blitz with concern, and others look at the blitz as opportunity, right?
Yes. That was one of those cases where my first Tark's looking at it, he's going, my first 6 or 7 guys are so much better than your first 6 or 7 guys that I'm not really going to coach. I'm just going to put them out there.
And we'll score 180 if we want to against that.
Good.
So
good. They scored. I think they beat Michigan 140 to 105 earlier. So, that's the kind of team they had.
Duke, unfortunately, got a taste of that in Denver in that national championship game. You talk about an exclamation point. Oof.
They were good, but as I say, it makes me feel old.
Young Bobby Hurley wasn't ready for that year. Now, the next year, he was, but not that first year, not that freshman year for Bobby.
Not that 1990 group.
No, not at all. Well, Cecil, we got to get out of here, but as always, we appreciate the time, my man. We got the Irishman dropping tomorrow. We didn't get into that, but we got the Irishman dropping.
That's in my, it's a tough window, but
got an alarm set for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find some time.
We'll review it next week.
That seems like something good to do before the turkey and dressing.
Absolutely. Gather the family around for some Scorsese Mafia.
I don't care about watching the Lion.
All right, Cecil. Have a great Thanksgiving, my man.